Cagecraft podcast. I'm Val here with Dylan and a very special guest, Mike Polvere from Cage Titans. Did I say that right?
Mike Polvere, you got it.
There we go. Yeah, so I mean, this is unique because I have done interviews with fighters, several fighters, but never someone on the business side of things. So it's exciting to change things up and talk a little shop, a little what goes on behind closed doors, maybe. How you doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say too. I'm very interested as well, just because I'm an athlete myself, and then also I commentate and run social media for a local amateur promotion around here. So I've gotten a real look into the kind of business side of things as well, but obviously at a real kind of micro level. So I'm very just interested to hear, from one of the bigger boys, kind of on the rise in the regional scene, what it's like and stuff. So Val, if you want to kick it off, first question.
Yeah. I know you were a fighter and have a background in marketing, but what got you into MMA in the first place, and then got you from just doing MMA yourself to wanting to be a promoter, wanting to be in the business aspect of it yourself?
Yeah, essentially, I was an athlete growing up. I played hockey. That was actually my sport. And, after high school, I really had no outlet athletically. And I wasn't much of a go to the gym, lift weight kind of guy. That stuff was boring to me. So I was always a fan of MMA. And essentially, I bought a heavy bag, a speed bag, an elliptical. I just started working out on my own in my basement and lost some weight, and then found an MMA gym. And the rest, as they say, is history. I essentially started training at the gym. Thought I was just going to be doing it for fun. And I enjoyed doing it. And one day the coach said, "Hey, listen, if you want to, fight, you're pretty good at this. What do you think?" And I said, "Sure." One fight turned to 2, turned to 3, turned to 4, turned to 5. And then the journey was the same for Cage Titans. I think I got into the sport of MMA as a fighter late. So I kind of knew my ceiling. I wasn't going to make a run at the UFC or anything like that. So I knew it was kind of time to get out, but not time to stop helping the sport of MMA grow in a different way. And with my background in marketing and sales, it just totally made sense to do an event. I was an operations and marketing manager at the time at a venue, and the two worlds just blended perfectly. The owners of the venue, their kids were big MMA fans. They used to come to my fights, and they were like, "Listen, you're a marketing guy, you're a sales guy. We have the venue. You got the background and the relationship with the fighters. Let's do a fight." And one turned to 2, turned to 3, turned to 64 14 years later.
64, yeah, coming up this week.
Yes.
That's an awesome story. And I love the awareness, not necessarily pursuing the athletic career past your point and trying to achieve something in that, but really transitioning and turning that experience into promoting is very cool. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Coop's Bar and Grill. I know that's kind of the operations of Cage Titans. I've heard a little bit about it. Never been there, unfortunately, myself. But, tell me a little bit about how that got started and, what that means to the promotion.
It's so funny you say that. So, oddly enough, there was a Coop's well before Cage Titans. I want to say 16, 17, 18 years ago, I got a phone call from a friend of mine on a Saturday night, and he said, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing?" I said, I'm grocery shopping. And he's like, "What do you mean you grocery shopping on Saturday night?" I said, "Well, when you're married and you have kids, you grocery shop on Saturday nights." And he's like, "Well, we're doing an event at Coop's, and we're looking for somebody to work the door. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll shoot down. I'll come down and work the door." So I worked the door at Coop's, and actually, Coop's used to get all the UFC pay-per-views. So I'd work the door at the UFC pay-per-views. And the owner of Coop's looked at me the first time I met him and was like, "Really? This is our door guy?" Because mind you, I'm 5'7", not a lot. I'm not very intimidating. And he's like, my friend said to him, he's like, "Yeah, this is probably the toughest kid I know. So trust me, you want him on the door." So I worked the door, and then I used to work the door there, as a favor to my friend who was the manager for all their UFC pay-per-views. And when I was fighting, I was billed as Coop's doorman. So, fast forward to COVID, and I became best friends with the owner, and he was in my, my wedding, things like that. And during COVID, he just kind of was sick of everything, and he said, "Listen, I'm going to turn the reins over to you, and you're going to take over Coop's because I'm done with this if you want it." And at that point in time, I wasn't sure what was next for Cage Titans because live events weren't happening. And I said, you know what, let's go for it. So, Coop's kind of came into the fold, became owner of it. And, that's kind of the whole full circle. And, we built a studio down there for our podcast. But it's funny because 15 years ago, we used to do the weigh-ins at Coop's for another promotion, a promotion that I fought for when I was the doorman. We actually used to do the weigh-ins at Coop's Bar and Grill. So it's kind of full circle moment for Coop's. We just recently started getting back into the UFC pay-per-views and really becoming a MMA friendly restaurant, bar, grill. It's a sports bar. Great times.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting to have an official bar for your promotion, basically. Okay, I've heard MMA is a weird sport if you compare it to other sports, football, basketball, baseball. It's just weird the way the business works. And I know you recognize that because I've heard you say, as much as I love this sport, I also hate it. What do you love and what do you hate most about MMA each?
Whew, man. I mean, I love everything about Fight Night. I love everything about living your dreams and all, you dreamed of that moment for so long and it's finally there in Fight Night. I love all that Fight Night stuff. And just like every fighter, they probably hate everything that goes into getting ready for Fight Night. I look at my journey with Cage Titans. I'm in a fight camp. For the next 8 weeks, we're preparing for this night, and it's sleepless nights, doing all the marketing, doing all the graphics, getting all the tickets out and doing everything. And even on fight week, it's setting up the cage, breaking it down, getting the venue ready. We're on this journey that the payoff is finally on Fight Night. So I feel very much in tune with their journey because for us, they probably hate missing birthday parties and going out with the boys and having beers and doing all that stuff leading up to fight week. I mean, up into their fight. But it's all worth it on Fight Night when they get to showcase all that hard work and effort. So I'm very much in tune with that. So I kind of hate all the BS leading up to it, but I love the payoff on Fight Night.
Now you're 6 nights out from Fight Night, so I bet the BS intensifies a little bit the closer you get.
Yeah, man, it's a wild week. Fight week is very intense. Getting all the fighters licensed and medicals, and we're not a big organization where it's the UFC where we have medical teams and travel teams and marketing teams and this, that, and the other thing. And it's really tomorrow starts. We have odds maker meetings with, the betting, BetMGM picks up all of our fights. So we have odds maker meeting with them all day. We're doing a great promotion this upcoming fight with Hall of Famer Ty Law from the Patriots with his new vodka he launched.
Nice.
So we have a conference call with him. We're going to actually, we'll tidbit it here. We're going to be doing a promotion where if you buy a bottle of Ty Law's new vodka, you'll be entered into sitting in the VIP with him on Fight Night and watching the fights. So that's kind of a cool thing we're going to be doing. Tuesday, another thing we do all of our own production. So, we own all the cameras and all the audio equipment, the lights, the sound. So Tuesday's production meeting. Wednesday, we got all of our fighters from out of state flying in. Thursday, it's press conference. Friday, it's weigh-ins. Saturday morning, it's 8:30 at the venue, setting up the lighting rig, the cage, Fight Night, and then breaking down the cage and breaking everything down. So it's really a fun journey on Fight Week, to say the least.
You see, this is what I wanted to hear. Everything that all the little stuff that people don't think about that goes into it. It's just awesome to hear. All right, Dylan.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've heard from people I've spoken to, and obviously just from the content I've seen, it is all about marketing for you, and you almost view this as each event is like a business in and of itself. I've heard. So what about your style of marketing and working with the fighters and stuff is different than perhaps some other regional promotions and how other guys even in the area do it?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I say all the time, we're a marketing company first who just happens to market MMA fighters and MMA fights in a promotion. And it's just the little stuff. When I fought, we didn't get any marketing. We didn't get any social media. The promoter would just hand you tickets and say, hey, guys, go out there and sell us tickets and make me money. And that was what it was to be a fighter. And if you wanted to fight, you had to sell tickets to get a fight on a promotion, and they gave you no tools. So my first fight, I made my own posters and I went out there and hustled. I made t-shirts and banners and things of that nature. So what makes us different is just stuff that comes second nature to us. Weigh-in photos, live streaming the weigh-ins, like having fight photographers that we pay that are in-house that are taking good photography of your fights. We do our own production and we stream it, and then we also release all the fight videos. Like I fought 5 times. I think I have one video of my fights, and it's a grainy cell phone video from my brother. And it's like, there's still promotions that don't release fight films. There's still promotions that don't release photos. It's just what we do differently is that we're giving you the tools. When I spoke earlier about like I didn't get anything, like we're pumping up social media. We're giving you fight banners. We're giving you team banners. We're giving you content to kind of help tell your story that, hey, I'm fighting, and it doesn't have to be a post. Like, you better buy tickets. This is how I get paid. It's subtly posting your fight picture, and then people like, oh, yeah, he's fighting. Maybe I should hit him up for tickets. Just giving them content. Also telling their stories. It's so easy to say fighter A is fighting fighter B, and everybody does that. Record XYZ versus record XYZ. I very rarely talk about their records unless it tells the story and you get these 2 undefeated studs. For the most part, we're like, hey, this fighter is a skilled, world champion judo player who is a state champ wrestler, and he's taken on a BJJ black belt who's, former college football player, and telling the story of the fighter and who they are and what their background is, not only in terms of martial arts, but who they are as a person as well. And I think that gets the buy-in from the fans, and we have a rabid fan base that really enjoys our product.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about MMA so much is everybody has such a unique background of how they found fighting of all things on the planet. It's like we truly, it's so diverse in backgrounds and styles and stories. So I love that you guys are really taking that as the front note and being like, okay, we want to tell these people's stories and promote them as people and fighters as well. It's very cool.
Dylan, I love that you say that because, when I first got into this, it's like, oh, you got these 2 bloodthirsty barbarians that are just like beating the crap out of each other and they just like to fight. And it's like, no, this just happens to be the competition that we like to go towards. We're goal-oriented individuals that like to compete and like to test ourselves, and this just happens to be the medium that we use in the mixed martial arts cage.
And not to talk about myself, but I found, I was a collegiate javelin thrower. I went to nationals my junior year. COVID canceled my senior year, and then I found combat sports, and here I am fighting Muay Thai in 3 weeks. And it's like, those are I feel like the type of unique stories that people just happen to fall into this sport, and then it turns into their life. So it's cool stuff.
MMA humanizes fighters like almost no other sport, really. I mean, you get guys like Jared Gordon, who has, he was on the streets doing drugs, and MMA saved his life. A lot of guys have those stories, and it sounds to me like what you're saying basically is that you actually promote and you're professionals about it, unlike other organizations who just put on the fights and say show up.
Yeah, and Dylan, congrats on if this is your first fight, but I envision if you fought for Cage, I'd like, hey, listen, come on, watch Dylan. He was a collegiate javelin player, and tell a little bit of your background and tell you who you are. And then somebody at home, because we do our own podcast every Monday, Table Titans.
Yeah.
And I say, let's talk everything about you, not your fight. We'll do one little small segment about who you're fighting and your background, but I want to know everything about you, because somebody at home right now is going to be watching this and go, holy shit, Dylan's a javelin thrower? I was a javelin thrower.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't know who the hell Dylan was, but I kind of want to see him fight now. For no other reason besides I threw the javelin and he threw the javelin. And now you got a fan that is intrigued about your fight, as opposed to, hey, this guy Dylan's fighting Val. Come on, let's watch it and get excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's already there for the fight. It's like, what is behind the fight that drives that forward? That's what really makes it exciting, so.
Well, and that's why people have trouble getting into sports in other languages at times, because there's no story being told. You don't know who the fighters are, like some Muay Thai guy. But then even in America, sometimes promotions don't tell the story, don't, utilize that tool of being able to connect with people on a personal level.
And think of every superstar that has kind of emerged, that kind of crossed over, not just an MMA fighter, but like a Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor or Francis Ngannou. Tell me something about either one of those people. Conor McGregor was on food stamps and in poverty back when he was in Ireland before he made it big. Nagano was in the salt mines, and their story. Ronda Rousey, Olympic medalist, and Henry Cejudo, another one. Like their stories and their background, and you feel a part of it, and it really builds a connection that gets people intrigued.
Absolutely.
Sport would be nothing without the fighters. Some promoters lose sight of that, so I'm glad you haven't. And in that vein, let's switch over to talking about this event you got coming up this week. I want to hear from you. What are the fights that fans should be looking out for? What are the fights that'll be like, oh, these are the most talented guys on the card. This is or this is going to be a for surefire banger. Which fights are those?
One that jumps right out, that I keep going back to, this card's stacked. We have Peter Barrett, who is in the UFC, who's trying to work his way going back up. Since he got cut from the UFC, he's had 3 fights with us, 3 finishes. And, you're always excited to see a Slippery Pete fight. But the one that really kind of stands out, not only the main event, which we could probably get to, but a card that's not the main event, is Jay Perrin versus Chris Makate. Jay Perrin came to Cage Titans. One of our fighters, Jeff Perez, kind of begged me to give Jay a chance. Jay was a 3-3 fighter when he came to Cage Titans. And Jeff Perez was a longtime amateur champion and pro fighter for Cage Titans. And he said, can you give my boy a chance? He just needs a chance. He came to Cage Titans, went 5-0, won our bantamweight title, went on to the Contender Series, went on to the UFC. Here he is back after, getting cut from the UFC, and he's trying to work his way back. He's still young, and he could have went the easy path and just said, give me a couple guys to just beat up on, go 3-4-0 and tell the UFC I deserve to be back. He's not taking that road. He's taking on Chris Makate, who's 7-2. And Chris Makate is the main training partner of Cub Swanson, UFC Hall of Famer. This kid's wrestled his entire life. He was on Table Titans. He told the story. His first touch of MMA was when he was a kid, and he was doing a wrestling summer camp, and Tito Ortiz came. This is when Tito was at the height, and Tito was actually one of the coaches and did a big speech and seminar there. So, this kid's been around wrestling. He was a collegiate wrestler, and he's extremely tough kid. And I love this fight because, once again, Jay could have took the easy path, but he said, give me the toughest guys because I want to rattle off 2 or 3 tough guys that are on the verge of getting to the UFC, beat them, and show the UFC that I'm that level. As for Chris, he probably could have done the same thing. Skated by with another 1 or 2 wins and get to 9-2, leverage the Cub Swanson connection, maybe get on the Contender and play it easy or play it safe. He's like, no, man, I want tough fights. I want to prove I belong there. And what better way to do that than taking out a UFC veteran like Jay Perrin? We got not only that, UFC Hall of Famer Cub Swanson cornering a fighter against Jay Perrin, who will be cornered by Joe Lozon. 2 UFC coaches cornering against each other.
Wow.
Another fun little angle for that fight. So there's your fight that give you a little more intro. And, of course, the main event, Prisma and Everett. But that's one you might not think about that I think you should be interested in.
I can confirm I've watched Chris Makate fight live for United Fight League twice here in Arizona, where I live, and he is an absolute dog. He's really, really fun guy to watch, and like Mike, you were saying, he is just one of those lifelong MMAers, who's really been around the sport since day one. So that definitely gets my juices flowing as a fan, no doubt.
Yeah. East Coast versus West Coast, man. It don't get much better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 UFC legends.
So I would like to, I would like to ask a question. Obviously, you got Joe Giannetti, Cage Titans legend, but his opponent, Michael Dufort, obviously had that huge upset last time. I want to hear about your thoughts of him signing with the PFL and getting the chance in the PFL lightweight season.
I'm super stoked for Michael Dufort. This is another example of a guy. I tell fighters every time they fight for me, we'll give you the platform. What you do with it from there, it's all yours. But I promise you, we will have cameras and video. We will capture it and we will spread it out to the world. When Dufort came to us, we really weren't sure what we were going to expect, but we were flying him in for a stare down with Giannetti. And when I got on the phone with him, when he landed, we were talking, and I was like, hey, you want to bring a flag? I can bring you a flag. He's like, don't worry, I got this covered. And I was like, okay, let's see what you got. And I'm a hockey player. I grew up a hockey player. So he shows up to the venue in a 3-piece suit, and he has a brown paper bag in his hand. And I'm like, I go, what are you thinking? We're chopping it up a little bit. the hockey connection. And he's like, I got a Habs jersey. And I was like, oh shit. All right, we're doing this. So, you know, he got in there. He was just such a professional. He really played it up to the camera. He knew his role. And he knew his role was the villain to come in and take out Giannetti in his hometown. And he did an amazing job. It was an incredible performance. And, you know, he made it look easy. And the whole entire time, like, you know, I told him, I said, listen, you might come in the villain, but if you put on a good performance, you're going to have lifelong Cage Titans fans. And he came in, did what he said he was going to do. And by the time he left at the after party, everybody's buying him beers. He's wearing a Red Sox hat. Like the kid became a true Cage Titans guy. And we've been in communication with him for a while. We knew if he didn't get on that UFC Canada card, that we would probably be looking to get him back on a card. We were actually going to be bringing him in for March, but the PFL offer came. It made a ton of sense for him. His teammate won the tournament 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I couldn't have been happier. And he's been so grateful towards us every step of the way. You know, hey, Cage Titans really gave us this platform. They really let me shine. They really blew my name up, and he was really appreciated. So, you know, he's another one of our guys that just going on. And he was an out of countryer when he came to us, but he really embraced the Cage Titans culture, and we embraced him.
Love that.
That's awesome. I know we're almost out of time, but can't leave without talking about the man himself, Joe Giannetti. What's next for Joe? He's headlining the next one after this? Is that?
Yeah, so pretty much he was scheduled to fight Ali Zabi, and Ali Zabi unfortunately pulled out with staph infection. So we actually have a few names floating around for May that we're trying to maybe get you guys a little surprise on March 30th. Bring him inside the cage and see if we can announce something. There's one thing that we're trying to put together that we can announce March 30th, and there's another one that we might try to put together that we'll have to wait a week and maybe the first week of April. But Giannetti should be back May 25th in the headliner, back at his weight of lightweight 155.
Sounds good. I mean, that's the big star, the big homegrown kid. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you got.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Mike. It's awesome. I can't wait to watch Cage Titans this Saturday, March 30th, Plymouth Memorial Hall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir, man. Plymouth Memorial Hall, our home, you know, America's hometown, brother. Like, you got to have a great time.
Some real
It's a
history
beautiful
there.
venue. It's a beautiful venue. It's amazing there. So, yeah, tune in this Saturday. We got a stacked card. We didn't even talk about the main event, Everett DeSalle and John Piersma. Those guys are absolute animals. And if you told me last month that a guy making his Cage Titans debut, because remember, Piersma made his Cage Titans debut in January, would be headlining a card that had Barrett on it, that had Perrin on it, has Johnny Cupcakes on it. Like, I'd be
Johnny
like, you're
Campbell.
crazy. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I'd be like, you're insane. Somebody who's making their Cage Titans debut would not be headlining. And here you are, a guy, Everett DeSalle, who's only fought for Cage Titans twice, Piersma, who's only fought once. They're headlining the card with a guy like Peter Barrett. This is his 24th walk to the cage for Cage Titans. Johnny
Wow.
Cupcakes, 25 walks to the cage for Cage Titans. Perrin is a 9-time Cage Titans veteran, you know, Cage Titans champion. So, like, it shows the level of those two guys, Piersma and Everett DeSalle. I touched on it. I might not have called him by name, but Everett DeSalle, who is he was a world champion in judo, a collegiate wrestler, All-American. You know, Piersma is just an incredible wizard on the ground, college football player. It's going to be an intriguing match, and I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
so before
can't
we
wait,
let
man.
you go, just the last thing, tell the people like what time to tune in for the prelims and main card and where to tune in for it.
Yeah, so, you know, unfortunately, if you didn't buy a ticket for Cage Titans and you're watching and you're from the New England area, Cage Titans 64 is sold out. So, unfortunately, if you don't have a ticket now, you won't be in the venue. But don't worry, Spectation Sports got you covered. Spectation Sports is the exclusive platform for Cage Titans and our live streams. You can tune in 6 o'clock when the prelims start. I'd say the main card goes off about 8:30. We've got 14 fights for you, 7 fights on the undercard. 7 fights on the all pro main card. It should be a great time. And yeah, man, check us out, spectationsports.com.
Well, I'll be there tuning in. Appreciate the time, Mike. Have a good one.
Yep.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike. Appreciate
Peace.
it.
Thanks, buddy.